What's going on, everybody? It's episode 33, Warriors of Light podcast.
Hey, we're back again. Yay.
For another episode.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to be talking about the illusion that we're all under of being separated from God.
And from each other.
Yeah, that it's actually funny that you just said that, because today's Veterans Day. And when I joined the Army, it was the first time I had left my home region in the Northeast United States. Like, I'd never been on a plane before. And then throughout my time in the Army, you slowly start to realize, like, oh, we're all the same.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, everyone, even all the different places in the world that I went to, I'm like, generally, we're all the same when we all want the same things.
Absolutely.
And that's how we were created.
Yeah. I mean, that's like what we were talking about just a bit ago off camera is like I said, I watch things going on in the world and I see this, again, illusion of separation that, the powers that be use that against us to keep us apart because whether it be that we're different religions, that politics, race, sexual orientation, like all these different things that they use to keep people pitted against each other. And I'm like, at the end of the day, man, we're all a team. We're all one giant team. Us with the rest of nature, with this planet, like literally, we're all one, right? Jesus said the power is within. God already said, like the power that God has, our creator has, that energy is within each and every one of us. We just have to tap into it and use it, right? And so if we use that and we all come together and say, hey, how can I serve you? And bring out our gifts and our passions to the world and we use those to serve each other, imagine the power that we have as a one big unit, right? But we have the powers that be that already understand this and they say, man, we can keep using these different schemes to keep people apart and keep people separated and against each other, which makes us that much easier to control, right? So even like, mass marketing and all these things, what do? You need to go, get more money so that you can go buy more shit that you actually don't need. Right. And so you keep people in that illusion, like, I need to go buy more. And then you have all this crap that you don't need accumulated. And you're like, what do I have all of this stuff for? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having things, not at all. But I've said it before on the podcast from a very young age, being able to buy new vehicles and homes and all these different things. And at the end of the day, until I started doing the internal work and continue to do that internal work and understanding why I'm really here, that shit never made me happy. It never brought me true fulfillment, right? True fulfillment comes through me serving other people, like whether it be clients I've served in the past through coaching or training or whatever the case is, and they hit me up a year later, 2 years later, like, man, I still remember things you said, I still remember the stuff you showed me, and that's true fulfillment. That's what actually makes me feel like, man, I actually did something and made an impact, right? I'm grateful for the material and monetary things I've received, but at the end of the day, that's not what's actually brought me the fulfillment that I've been looking for. And like, so that's why I tell people, like, don't allow this illusion of separation. Don't allow them to keep us separate. Actually, just look inside yourself and what passions and desires do you have, that just that burning desire, as Wayne Dyer used to say, that never goes away. What desire do you have to use to go out and help the rest of the world? Right. And find a way to bring that forward and use that to serve the rest of humanity or animals or the rest of the planet, whatever it is. And let's unite as one giant team and then watch us live in harmony and live in an amazingly different world than what we live in right now, where everybody's fighting and against each other, which is, again, the powers that be want us to be there so that we stay separated and stay in that fight. But imagine if we all start to unite. Not even, I mean, everybody. We can just get a good portion of us to come together, and that energy is going to transfer over to the rest of the planet, right? There's no energy more powerful than love. So it's like we all bring love to each other and love to everything we do. Imagine the world we'd be living in.
Yeah, I mean, the light is inside all of us. The light of God is within each and every individual. However, there are some people that carry it differently once you become a little more awakened, which is something I was uh thinking about earlier, because the problem with humanity is that we all think we're individuals, and we all think that we're so different from each other, but we all come from the same source. So
Exactly.
so what's challenging is that um for people, like, I'm not perfect by any means, but as each year goes on and the more aware I become every day of my life that I'm living, like we're talking about off camera, like now I'm at a stage where God is having me work on all these little details that just kind of seem to come out of nowhere. Like, okay, there's something for you, but first you need to work on this, right? But I was watching a video earlier about, like, and you and I have talked about this before, about people who are a little more awake, a little more aware. Like, there's been so many people that say the spiritual realm is more real than the one we're in right now.
Mhm.
And I've experienced this, and we talked about this before. But when you are quote unquote carrying that light and projecting it, there's going to be people, like for me, it's usually kids and animals that are like, "Oh, who's that?" Like, or they stare at you. Like, I was in the store a couple weeks ago, and this dude's dog just came right up to me, like, "What's up, dude?" And but to some people who aren't awake, what I've learned is that the light of God exposes the truth. So I've also heard, and I've kind of experienced this a little bit. I noticed more of the positives than the negatives, but like, people, when you shine that light, people, there are some people who will look at it and feel threatened by it, because the light of God is the truth. And when your aura or your energy that you shine will automatically make people who may not be on that side, quote unquote, feel insecure automatically. And you didn't even say anything. You don't even know the person. Like, I've been in, I don't know, maybe it's because I got a big nose, but I've been in places where like I'm out eating with my family, and these people, dude, there was one day we went out and these people were just staring at me and my wife the whole time. I'm like, but in my monkey mind, I'm like, are you a threat? But then I think back on it later, and I'm like, maybe it's because of my energy. I don't know. But so many people, we've been programmed to believe that we are separate from God.
Mhm.
But where do we come from in the first place?
Exactly.
We're all pretty much the same. We just, maybe we speak a different language, maybe we eat some different food, but we all come. The light of God is already in each and every one of us. We just have to realize it.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and like what you were saying, the reference of people staring at you guys, probably the energy, man. Like I've noticed that too, when I'm embodying like some of my higher energy and I'm feeling good and which I try to embody that as much as possible, but you see people kind of look or people just smile, and I think it's just the aura that you carry, right? And like you said, that light's within each and every one of us. And I think honestly people are looking for more of that light, but we are directed to do it by chasing things, right? More stuff, more things, more money, more people, more whatever, right? And again, if you receive things by way of doing what you're truly passionate about, wonderful. But you're gonna gain the light by just embodying that feeling of love and joy and peace and bliss and happiness at all times, right? That's kind of why when they talk about like wanting to manifest things in your life, I mean, what is it that brings a manifestation to your reality? Is basically you embodying that feeling that you think that thing's going to give you before it even shows up, right? And so
Well,
if you're already in that light, the things you desire will have no choice but to show up.
exactly, dude. And I know this because of my own personal experience, but I've heard so many times, Ask God in faith, believing, and you will receive it.
Mm-hmm.
That for me is 100% true. Everything I've ever worried about, everything I've ever had a problem with, or whatever, it has always worked out one way or another every single time.
Absolutely.
But
It's,
that's why we talked about this on another episode. We were talking about how society is somewhat quote unquote spiritually sick because we've been programmed to believe like some people are programmed to believe there is no God, you know? And it's like the journey I've been on the last few years have been like, oh my God. Like God was there the whole time. I just like a few years ago, I was just like, oh, now I see it.
yeah,
It took 33 years to be like, holy crap.
absolutely.
So like, and what you're talking about, like material stuff, store up for yourself treasures in heaven, not on earth. And I think that comes down to like what you're talking about, peace, love, serving other people. Like if we carry that light, we're supposed to help kind of gently nudge people to it, you know?
Yeah, assist them on their path. I mean, like we've talked about before, is kind of just planting the seed, and what folks do with it, they will. But if we, as we learn and grow and expand and see beyond the veil and embody these things, I feel like it's kind of my duty to go out and kind of share that with people as much as possible, right? Like to help. And my vision is to help other people not have to suffer as much, right? Not have to take as hard of a path to understand the power that lives within them and to be able to live the life that they truly came here to live. Conversation I have often is, what's one way people are kept separate from who they really are too is you have so many people out working jobs. We've talked about this before, working jobs they don't want to work to pay bills. And so they're just working, they're living to work to make this paycheck to pay a bill, right? When internally all they really want to do is like, they're very passionate about doing something else, whether it be like helping animals or helping people another way, whatever the case is. So I tell people then, figure out a way to set up your life to be able to go and live that passion and then turn that into how you serve and use your faith that the universe, God, whatever word you want to use, will return and cover everything that needs to be covered for you, right? Which is stepping out in faith. I mean, I've heard story after story of people just stepping out in faith and being like, I don't know, I feel this really deep desire inside of me to do this thing. I'm gonna go do it. I don't know how it's gonna work out because you don't need to know the when or the how. You just need to be able to take that step and trust that the rest of like your family and everything else will be taken care of, right? So hard for so many people to do. When I opened my wellness business several years ago, I walked away from being a medic, went into this completely unknown. I mean, yeah, I had been an athlete and whatever in the physical realm of things, but I had never ran a business. I didn't know what to do. And honestly, it was just like, let me serve and help people become healthier and better, right? And all the details came together. All the right people showed up, all the right, tools and things I needed, and all the right financing showed up. But that was me just really stepping out in faith and not living by fear or quote unquote safety by just having some job that's going to pay me this paycheck, right? And it's different if you're doing a job that you absolutely love and you feel like you are serving your purpose. Great, wonderful, do it. But if you're doing something and you're like, man, I just can't stand going to this every day, but I'm doing it so I can get this paycheck, that's where you start. I tell people start to evaluate inside of you, what is it that you really think you're here for? What is it that lights you up when you do it, right? That you could wake up every single day, jump out of bed, and have that purpose. Like, man, I'm so excited to go serve this, right? And again, don't allow that illusion of that separation. Like, no, you need to go get this job and pay this bill and do these things. That's a system that's been created that's keeping you small. So one of my biggest messages I want to share with everybody is like really look at these systems that have been built, government, medical systems, schooling systems, all these things, and how they're trying to get you to conform into this small version of yourself when you actually have so much more living inside of you that your soul came with that you're here to go give to the world. And that's what you're here for. And then you go and unite others with that, right? And then we become one big team. Again, we have a planet of bliss and love and joy, as opposed to people suffering, struggling, and trying to barely make it. That's not what we came for. Not in my heart.
Yeah, man. I think, when you're young, it's hard to see the world from the perspective that you and I are looking at it, I think. because of exactly what you're saying, like this sort of system we're brought up in of money, wealth, power. And I kind of, as I get older, I'm like, oh, the less things I want. And like, it's funny when you're young and you're like, you're going through high school and everyone's got the cliques and blah, blah, blah. Dude, when you go to a job, it's almost like the same thing
Mm-hmm.
because people are just in that cycle of the world,
Mm-hmm.
which is another thing I've heard quite often is, what I was talking about earlier with like that aura or that energy where you carry that light. It's like there's two parts. One is there's going to be some people that don't like you. Not everybody's going to like you, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Growing, like Brian was talking about, with growing, awakening, all this journey, it's not always going to be comfortable. You're going to have to be uncomfortable because God is like, hey, you asked for this, so I'm going to put you on that path. And then what do? We just resist a little bit. We're like, wait, I didn't want that. Because God doesn't give you what you want right away. He gives you what you need in order to get
Absolutely.
what I think God gives us what we need in order to attain what we want.
Absolutely.
So, um,
And oftentimes
and
you have to evaluate what you want. Is that coming from the soul or is that coming from the ego? Because you oftentimes will attain things that you think you want, you get it, and you're like, this is it, right? You realize like this didn't make me feel what I thought it was gonna make me feel. Because you can have that feeling without those things. I mean, it's really like what is it coming from a deep heart center that's leading you in this life to do things and make change. And like you said though, following that path is often lonely. That's one of the big things I realize is like, you kind of outgrow previous friends and people and places and things that you used to do, right? That kind of helped you fit in. And you're not really here to fit in. You're here to be that light that you are that's unique to everyone else's. Yes, we're all one unit, but you have your own special light to shine, right? And like you said, I mean, I think oftentimes what the world's trying to tell us is conform and fit into this group. Well, if we are all one giant group and everybody has a beautiful, unique light to share, right? Which is really why we're here. But again, when you go down that path of awakening, it becomes kind of lonely. And then that's where it kind of like makes you want to, sometimes it makes you want to like veer back to old ways because you're like, wait a minute, I used to have more friends at this time. Well, it's all right. Keep elevating. You'll align with all the folks that you're intended to be around. So,
well, that's something I've learned. And like I said, when I started to get closer to God a few years ago, is that like I think I told you about how I kind of had like a mini life review, and
hmm
I realized all the times God had been there, and I was like, oh my God. And because the problem is that once you, like, kind of like you and me, is that once you start to awaken and you walk with God, who we are not separate from, uh, the systems, the enemy, whatever you want to call it, they don't like that because what happens when you find that truth for yourself is that you will start to find eventually that you cannot be controlled. And that is a threat to, if you want to call it, dark forces or systems or whatever. Like we talked about this. I'm like, the older I get, the less I care about like authority and freaking all this nonsense, this fear-based system, all of it. I'm just like, dude, it's all nonsense. If you walk with God, it's a threat to everything that's trying to control you because there's only one that controls you when you do that, and that's God. That's it. A person who only answers to God is a threat I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, if you allow for divine orchestration, which is always happening in every aspect of your life, you'll be led right to where you're supposed to go with, I would say little to no detour if you in fact allow that. But because we are we have these governments and these things try to make us fear and be shameful and do all these things, and they're trying to lead us just to where they want us to be or keep us small. um we think that's what we're supposed to be led by, and no, you're actually being led by your soul all the time. I mean, you're receiving divine downloads all the time. And so that's why I tell people, like, learn to get out of the mind and really get into the heart and bring those two together, and really be listening to the heart, right? And you'll never go astray at that point. I mean, it's like you said, everything is always being orchestrated. You saw it in your life when you kind of look back and realize, man, everything that was coming together for you, even the hard times where people are like, where's God at right now? God's literally letting you be in that situation, trying to show you something, trying to refine you and help you become a better version of you so that you can elevate and go forward in this life. It's never because God's like, oh, I'm just absent from you. God will be quiet to give you time to self-reflect and look at the situation you're in and say, okay, what is it I'm supposed to be learning from this? And then you move forward and you level up. So everything in this life is for your highest good. I've said this many times on the podcast. Is like, I look at life and I always say, I think you got everything's for my highest good and for the highest good of all. And I know it is. Um, don't get me wrong, doesn't mean there's not moments like we were talking about off camera where I'm like, shit, what's going on? Like, I want this to hurry up and like move forward, right? But I just understand, like, okay, then I have to reel myself back in and kind of reflect with myself and say, okay, like, have patience. Things are working out for your highest good. So it's not like I'm always, I would say most of the time I'm in that positive state, but boy, I have my moments where I'm just like ready to throw shit. But I know that it's all good. I just take a breath, go a little 15-minute meditation. I'm back back in alignment and ready to go again. So.
Dude, I'm laughing because when you said like, "Oh shit, what's going on?" It was just there's this guy that made this reel, and it's like when Jesus takes the wheel and he's in the back like flopping around, like, "Oh no!"
I think I saw that. I think I saw that before.
But you spoke about the heart and something that I've started to do fairly recently, actually, because we've talked about, you know, like emotional intelligence and stuff like that. And I've pondered on it for a little bit because one of the teachings is don't trust your heart because it could possibly lead you astray. Now, other people might view it differently, but something I've started to say, because we talk about surrender, is God, I surrender my heart to you. And when I do it, I just feel different, like more at peace. Because for me, my emotions can shift one way or another depending on circumstances, or did I wake up on the wrong side of the bed or whatever. And I'm just like, God, I surrender to you, not just my mind, body, soul, but also my heart. Because I don't know, for me, I feel like it sort of stills the water more so.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in that term.
Yeah, absolutely. Surrender is one of those keys, right? We talk about surrendering everything, mind, body, and soul over. That's the key, right?
Yeah, man. Like, you know, this is a biblical reference, but it says, I don't remember what it's from, but my thoughts are not your thoughts, my ways are not your ways. So it's like God knows you better than you know yourself, which I think is kind of ironically funny because we're like we were talking about earlier, like we're programmed to kind of like have control over everything. When in
Yeah.
reality, when in reality, we don't have control over anything. And God's like, I already know what you're gonna do, idiot. Just just
Yeah.
let go and trust me.
That's something I've said before. I'm like, it's not like you pull a fast one over on God, where it's like I was like, oh shit, I didn't expect that. Like, no, God's like, I already knew you were gonna do that, And I mean, granted, you have the freedom, I guess, of choice in a sense, but I still believe we're receiving divine downloads. Like our thoughts don't even come from us, and we're like an antenna receiving these things, right?
Right.
So even
Yeah.
if you even if you make a decision that kind of really in a not so bright light alters your life, you were still led to go to that path for some reason, right? It's kind of like, say, a person makes a decision, takes someone's life, ends up in prison. well, what are they supposed to go do in prison? What are they supposed to change from? What's supposed to come of that? And if they actually were to take the time to look at that, they'd probably be able to see there's some great lesson in it. And it's something that can ultimately shift other lives. But but yeah, we ultimately aren't in control. It's another one of those illusions, right? Is we think that we have full control. I tell people I think that's one of the biggest soul corrections that we have is that, everybody's like, I'm in control of everything. It's like, yeah, okay, you're not.
Don't you find that when you do try to control everything, you start to get a little more frustrated?
Oh, I get it. Yeah, it's like, I look back on when I was trying to control everything and why I was so irritated, why things weren't working out the way I thought they should have, because my ego was like, this is how stuff should go. And my soul's like, that's not the way things are intended to be. So just let it be. Right. And like, oftentimes that's when I would try to control situations is when the outcome wasn't really, in my eyes, favorable. Right. But the more I allow things to happen and kind of follow that heart guidance, I feel like things turn out just the way they're supposed to. And I'm always happy with it. But when I let that ego come in and take over, man, 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10 times, I'm like, damn it, that's not the outcome I wanted, so or would have hoped for. So
Dude, the most miserable people I've ever met, worked with, whatever, are the ones that try to control everything.
mhm,
The most miserable.
mhm.
Because if you're trying to control everything, just like I think I talked about it off camera. It's like when you worry, that means you believe that your fear is stronger than God. It's the same thing with controlling things. If you're trying to control everything, that means you have no faith.
Yeah, exactly. You have little faith because you think you need to control it all. That's why we've talked about so many times taking inspired action, right? Like take inspired action. You feel inspired to do something in a moment, whether it's go to, hey, you need to go to this coffee shop you never go to. Well, why are you being sent there? Because there's probably a person you're going to meet that's going to help you along the path, right, of what you're aiming for or whatever your desires are. But it's taking that inspired action, not being like I got to control and put everything in order. I think that that's why, like, there's definitely a benefit to discipline and consistency on things, but you see some people that are so rigid and disciplined that they have to have the same routine every single day, and when that routine is like knocked off kilter just a little bit, they freak the fuck out, right? And I
Yeah.
tell them, and I'm like, it's okay, life's going to throw curveballs and you got to be able to adapt and change with it and just kind of go with the flow, right? And that's something thankfully I've gotten really good at, is being able to be like, okay, like I had this vision for the day and a curveball comes and I'm like, that's okay. Like that's there for a reason. It's happening for my benefit. And so it's okay.
Well, something my grandfather told me before I went off to the army is to take it one day at a time. And that's something I try to do now that I'm out. I got a family, you know. Uh we have to, like we were talking about off camera, like we all have these big visions. But you have to take it one day at a time, because when I was younger, I was like, I followed that advice in like boot camp and stuff. I was like, okay, what am I doing today? And then you just go through it. And like I've said before on previous episodes, like I had checkpoints throughout the day. Every meal was a checkpoint. I'm like, okay, if I made it to this checkpoint, I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
So, uh, but now that I'm older, when you're in a relationship or you have kids or whatever the situation is, or you have a job, or even if you're single, you have a job or whatever, it's harder to try to
Hmm.
take it one day at a time, because everything is structured. So, okay, what's happening tomorrow? What's happening next week? This is the schedule for the month or whatever. So it's easy to get mixed up sometimes. But something I try to also tell myself is take it one day at a time, dude. Like we talk about living in the moment,
That's
because
a mhm.
because we stress ourselves out so much by thinking of the future.
Well, we've talked about that before, right? If you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're depressed, you're living in the past. But if you're in the present moment, typically you're doing okay, because the present moment's all we have. And it's kind of like we talked about before, like everything that's ever happened in your life has always been in the present moment, right? So the past doesn't even exist anymore because it happened in the present moment. At that time, it was the present moment. In the future, I always say, like, I have a vision. We were talking about off camera. I'm a big vision person, right? I have a big vision for big things in a big way. I want to help and change the world and so on and so forth. But I also understand all I have is right now, right? So that's why I was saying sometimes I have to reel myself back to the now and be like, wait a minute, but what can you do today that will ultimately eventually affect that present or that future that does not exist, right? Because I can definitely get lost in that. And it's like, I think about Wayne Dyer said, live from the end. He used to say, live from the end. So like, he'd create a book cover. He'd have a title for his book and create a book cover, and it'd be an empty book. There's nothing inside, but like he already had like the vision for the book, and then he would allow source to speak through him and put the words onto the paper. So that's kind of what I try to do. Is I see the vision for the future, but the future doesn't exist yet. So it's like, what can I do today that will kind of lead me in that, like a step closer to that. But also understanding that I always tell God, if your will is something different than what I can see, then so be it, let it be. Right. And that's another part of surrender, is understanding that like this outcome, I can't be attached to an outcome, because then I suffer if I don't receive that outcome. Right.
Yeah, I mean, talking about God's will, that's something I speak that out multiple times a day. I'm like, whatever your will is, Lord, let it be done. Because to me, like we talked about before, like we're talking about how we're not separated from God. And then I think, well, we've talked about alignment. So to me, when I speak out, let thy will be done, whatever you want me to do, to me, that's myself aligning with that divine will of what is sort of quote unquote destined to happen. Like we talk about resistance a lot. Like you talk about it all the time. Like what happens when you resist something? It usually pushes back.
It persists. It persists.
So,
Yeah.
so that's another thing I kind of add to my daily regimen is let your will be done, Lord. Whatever you have for me today, let it be done. Whether it's a challenge because it's trying to teach me something, or whether it's just a peaceful moment. Thank you. Thank you for the valleys, and thank you for the clear paths, because it's all development.
Absolutely. And no, we're not saying that that's the easiest thing to do, because again,
It's
I feel
not.
like I've been working on this, really, really diligently since 2017, man. And I still have moments just like this morning where I was like slightly frustrated and like, because you don't see the clear path all the time, right? And so that's the challenging part for me at times, is like, okay, so what is the next step for me? And that's something I find myself asking the creator often, is like, what's my next step? What do I need to do next to keep moving forward, to keep progressing, right? Sometimes it is just being still, right? Just taking care of myself, sitting in a meditation, reading a book, getting some movement in my body, whatever it is. Sometimes it's something as simple as that. But man, my monkey mind sometimes is like, well, it'd be nice if this would hurry the fuck up, but it's just not the way it works all the time, So it's like, yeah, well, that's why I gotta just calm myself back down. So it's just being real with the struggles that are still there, even though you've done and we continue to do the work on ourselves. That struggle doesn't just poof, it's gone. It becomes less and less, right? Because you learn to have more faith and more patience. Something I remind myself of that Wayne Dyer said all the time was, infinite patience brings immediate results. Sounds like a paradox, right? But if you're infinitely patient and you trust that everything's working out in divine time, and you can kind of just sit back, sometimes things will show up almost instantaneously, and you're like, wow. And I feel like that's almost because you're giving that energy to God, like, hey, I know you're working everything for my highest good. I don't know when or how all this stuff's going to come. So I'm happy right now, and I can be okay, and everything will show up. Right. And so it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
Well, that's something that's actually interesting, because I had made a reel at midnight for Veterans Day, and what I put in the reel is warriors are built in the wilderness, and um, and some of the stuff that I consume with social media, it was like even Jesus had to go through the wilderness, and he was challenged by Satan with scripture and all this stuff. It's like even the Son of God had to go through those trials. So
Yeah.
that's something I think about a lot too, is like, as humans, we tend to, well, at least in American society, we tend to get down about, oh, this isn't working out, or, oh, I'm sad, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, once you start to develop a little bit more and awaken to what we're talking about, you're like, oh, thank you, God. Thank you. Because now I'm more prepared. So I think about that a lot. Like when you're going through the storm, so to speak, what is it trying to
Yeah,
teach you?
which is a great way. Like, yeah, it's a great way to look at it. I always kind of try to share that with people too. Is just ask, what is it that you're trying to be shown, right? Because, like you said, it's preparing you for something. It's preparing you typically always for something greater. And like, kind of like we talked about earlier, it's like oftentimes if you receive these things that you really think you really want, right, and you're not prepared for it, you'll end up blowing it anyway. So it's like, I don't want anything to come to me until I'm ready to receive it and then use it appropriately, or accept it and be grateful for it. Um, and so I've had to learn that, and I've oftentimes had to learn that the hard way, where I receive things and wasn't ready for it, and then poof, it's gone. It's like shit, you know. Yep, messed that up. You know what I mean? But that was because I wasn't prepped for it, because I just didn't see the things that I was trying that were trying to be shown to me, right? So now I do take the time to step back and be like, all right, what am I supposed to be learning from this? Always see something in it, whether it's more patience, more faith, more courage, whatever it is, right? More discipline. I mean, whatever it is, I can look at now and be like, all right, I'm like, I get it. It's all there for my highest good. Again, that's just it's a mantra I use often. Like, this is all for my highest good and for the highest good of all, right? And so, I mean, I use that often, and I tell people, like, mantras do work to kind of rewire the brain. When your mind wants to go down a rabbit hole, it's just use a mantra. If you have to say it 100 times a day, eventually that will become your normal way of being, right? And so it does put you in more elevated positive state, which again is a much more beneficial place to be in than being down in the dumps for long periods of time.
Yeah, man, that's something talking about speaking mantras. Like, I mean, I kind of touched on it a little earlier about when I was talking about surrendering and all that kind of stuff. But like we were talking about earlier, we all have the light of God in us. For some people, it may be a little more dim than others, but that's okay because you might have things that are weighing you down. But another thing, like if you feel depressed, sad, angry, another thing I try to tell people and I practice myself, which I'm not always the greatest at because when you get like a strong feeling and you're like, oh, I'm like, you know what? When I get some alone time by myself, I'm like, all right, God, I release this to you, like take that weight off my shoulders and kind of like surrender that part. And because
Well,
what I'm trying to get at is like our words do have power. So if I say, God, I release this stress and anxiety to you, meaning I'm no longer giving that stress and anxiety energy anymore. I'm kind of like almost in a way like transmuting it to source to be like, hey, I don't want this. This isn't how I'm supposed to be feeling because and I know you can handle it. It sounds weird, but that's what I do.
yeah, absolutely. And for some people, honestly, like, I know for me, oftentimes talking is good and helps me release it. And something that I want to just offer up to people is, we always talk about people commenting. Feel free to reach out. I mean, I don't have a problem sharing my information for you to be able to reach out to me and talk to me if you're feeling down, depressed, if you have a lot of heaviness, because we've all gone through a lot of things, right? Some people worse than others, and that can be that weight. Oftentimes, we don't see clearly what it is inside of us that's causing that weight, right? And so, I've been blessed to be used to speak to people oftentimes and kind of be able to get deep enough to see something that may have happened way back in childhood and bring it to the surface and help them understand and release that, right? And forgive and whatever needs to be done to go beyond that. So, I mean, I'm just offering up my time, and if anybody needs someone to listen, and hopefully, can wisdom can come through me to lighten that burden. I want to be able to do that for people, because I understand, for me, going through a lot of my stuff has had to be just on my own. Well, not on my own. I'm always with God, but like through meditation and through some of my mentors like Wayne Dyer and stuff who have passed, like going through their works, a lot of that stuff has brought things up for me. But I do know that talking and being able to get it out and having a really good soundboard and somebody that has a deeper wisdom to be able to feed something back to you can help with facilitate the healing. So that's why we started this podcast, right? Is try to bring that light to the world and help people out. So we're here to help and serve in any way we can. And I know I'm willing to offer up time if anybody needs anything. Feel free to comment. Nate, you can let me know, or I can see it, or whatever the case is, and we can connect with people. So
Yeah, man. Because ultimately, we're here to serve each other.
absolutely.
Like we talked about, sharing that light. And while you were talking, it also made me think, like, because I've gone through hard stuff. You've gone through hard stuff. Everybody's gone through hard stuff. Which, what does that mean? Again, we're all going through different scenarios, but similar struggles.
Hmm.
We all experience anger. We all experience stress. We all experience anxiety and fear. But I don't know. One thing, I guess, one maybe final word I'll say is, even when you don't see it, God is with you all the time. That's why our words mean something when we speak. When you speak out, I don't want this anymore, or you speak out. If you, like I told my son when we were kicking the soccer ball, he's like, "No, I can't." I'm like, whether you say you can or you can't, it's true either way.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, man, we gotta. If you are feeling down or sad or struggling with something, comment, link up with us. We can try to. Well, we will guide you. Not try.
No, we'll definitely assist. One thing I want to throw out there too is, obviously we're here to touch anyone, man, woman, doesn't matter. But for the fellas out there, I know oftentimes we can feel alone. And we're not alone. We've all gone through a lot of stuff. And Nate having been in the service and me in EMS and just dealing with a lot of heavy things, a lot of traumatic situations. Not just that stuff, but also just life, trauma from life, right? Fellas, we're here for you. Like, reach out. I know there are men's groups, but that's one thing I was talking to somebody about earlier was that there's not a lot of like these. There's a lot of like women's groups, which is awesome. Like, women will band together and talk about things and kind of open up. And men, because of what we're taught, like, you got to be a man. We're ego driven oftentimes, and so we don't have as many places to go to do that and to feel safe. Just, fellas, I want you guys to know you guys can reach out to us. Like, definitely comment. Like I said again, I have no problem sharing information, and I know I can relate with you on many, many things and kind of help you just elevate beyond some stuff. I'm here for you. I'm here as a listening ear, and hopefully, be used by God, by the Creator, just to give wisdom to help with the healing, or just a place for you to just come and feel safe to talk. So, just want to put that out there for everybody, man and woman alike. Like I said, but for men especially, I know that we don't oftentimes have too many places we feel we can go to. So,
No, I love that. I think that's well, okay. One more final word. I agree with you. I've experienced it myself. I have plenty of friends who've felt like they're alone or they have no one to talk to. And men, we tend to, because of how we've been brought up, we're expected to be. We have sort of, just like we were talking about the illusion of being separated from God. We've been given an illusion of what strength means. Strength doesn't mean you just push it down and let it build up and then eventually, it ends up in a bad situation. Strength also means being vulnerable
absolutely,
and acknowledging things.
absolutely,
So it's not, even if you're ashamed of something, it's better to get it out and maybe get some advice, some wisdom, some guidance on it than to let it eat you up. Because just like we talked about, like energy, if you hold on to that negative energy, it's going to come out, and it's not going to come out in healthy ways if you don't have a outlet.
exactly. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, we're here for you. Like I said, feel free to comment, and I will be willing to give time and connect with you, whether it's via phone, email, FaceTime, whatever it is, to be able to talk and give you a space to share and open up and, like Nate said, become vulnerable and let it out. It's so healing. It's amazingly healing when you can let things out. Like he said, also, even if stuff you feel shameful for, don't worry about it, man. We've all done things. I mean, I've done plenty of things where I'm like, wow, why did you do that? But it all taught me something. So it's all good.
Well, all right, folks. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Reach out to us if you have any questions. If you need any help. And
Yep, we're here. We love you guys.
we'll catch you in the next one.
See you guys soon.